So I'm going to say something that's going to sound ridiculous. It's going to sound like, what? What are you saying? What are you saying? But I'm going to say it anyway. I'm going to say it anyway. You don't need another podcast. Hey, loves, welcome back to the Thrive Like a Mother podcast. Y'all, we are on the season finale, the final episode of season 5. Wow. Wow. How do we get here? Also, if you didn't notice, I am in a bit of a different location, which I will chat with you about in a moment. But y'all, this season has been about returning to ourselves. It's been about slowing down. It's been about how we thrive in practice in an embodied way. It's been about a lot about self trust, also trust in God first. We've talked about the messy middle, we've chatted about capacity and pivoting and healing, all the things. And honestly, like this entire season has been leading me up to this conversation. I kid you not. It came to me in a moment as I was planning out the next few episodes for the Thrive Like a Mother podcast, and it popped into my head. So I'm going to say something that's going to sound ridiculous. It's going to sound like, what? What are you saying? What are you saying? But I'm going to say it anyway. I'm going to say it anyway. You don't need another podcast. I'm going to say it again. You don't need another podcast. But wait, don't like close out Spotify or Apple Podcasts, YouTube, wherever you're watching me. Don't close out yet. Just hear me out for a few minutes because I'm not saying that podcasts aren't valuable. Personally for me, I started listening to podcasts back in 2020 and it completely shifted my world. In fact, it had me throwing my loofah in the air, the shower. That's a shout out to the very first podcast that I listened to, uh, Empower Her, Keisha by Keisha Get Married, who kind of really inspired me to start the Thrive Like a Mother podcast. It was from listening to her podcast. It was from finally going to her live events twice. It was speaking on stage. It was all of those things that led me to launching this beautiful community, this beautiful podcast that we've now been around for 3 years, y'all. Obviously, podcasts do something for us, right? They have value, they hold a space in our life. But what I'm saying is that at a certain point, I've said this before, information is just information unless you do something with it, right? Unless you take that podcast that you've been listening to, that area that you feel like you're lacking in, and you finally take some action. You finally get yourself in the community that will support you. And so when I think about it, right, the way that this popped into my head, and I've been chatting with a few people about this, about just the access to information that we have, the access that we have to people's lives and like what they're doing, the curated part of it mostly, more than like any generation before. I'm a millennial, right? And so I grew up right at the cusp of where we started getting access to, oh goodness, so much information, right? So if you want to learn how to meal plan, there's a podcast 100% for that. You want to learn how to regulate your nervous system, there's probably a million podcasts about that. You want to learn how to build a business, my gosh, so much information overload out there, but there's definitely a podcast about it. Learning how to heal, learning how to be present. I can keep going on. There is a podcast for everything. And yet, still, so many of us were listening to these podcasts. We're trying to take the action in our lives, but we are still feeling lonely. still feeling unheard, still feeling unseen, still feeling like we are carrying so much, including these new actions that we picked up to try to better ourselves. We still feel like we're carrying all of that by ourselves because, like I said, the information is important, but information and connection, those are not the same things. And so, what changed in me? Why am I sitting here telling you that you don't need another podcast to add to your list? You don't need another action step, right? You have the action steps, you've listened to the podcast. But what was it that actually started to move the needle for me, right? So, it wasn't like I didn't pick up another book. I didn't get another course. I didn't listen to another podcast. But what I did was get myself in the room. It was people. It was being able to sit across from another woman and realize, like, oh my gosh, I'm not the only person on this planet dealing with this thing that I've been dealing with. I haven't been the only person who's had this question or struggled with this. Because there's something that happens when you have someone else, another human being, not just listening to a podcast or watching a video or seeing a post. There's something about seeing another human being look at you and say, "Me too." And so there's no amount of scrolling that can replace that type of connection. There's no amount of information that you can consume that will be able to replace human connection. I think a lot of ourselves, myself included, like oftentimes convinced myself, like, oh my gosh, I just need like one more book. I need to listen to one more podcast. I need to keep being consistent with watching the YouTube videos or learning or getting another course or getting and learning another strategy, whether it's for motherhood, business, entrepreneurship, whatever it is. I just need one more piece of information. Let me go Google that. I say that so often. And what happens is then we feel ready to take the action, right? We're like, okay, I Googled it, I took the course, I did the things. I finally feel like I'm in a place where I can take this action and take it confidently, right? But what if it's not getting to the point of where you're feeling ready? What if it's not getting to the point of, oh my gosh, now I have enough information? What if what you're missing is not more knowledge to feel ready? What if all that you need is support? What if it's just support? What if it's just surrounding yourself with other people who get it, with other people who are on a similar path as you? What if it's being surrounded by people who can continuously remind you who you are and whose you are when you start to forget? And so I want to talk about season conversations. I told you at the beginning of this episode, obviously, you see, we're in a different location than I usually am in my office. This is actually Creator's Kitchen. This is the home of season conversations. And this place, the reason why season conversations exist here in this room, of course, it was never about the food, right? The food gets us to the table. It's a vehicle, it's a bridge to get us to sit down with each other in community. But it's what happens around that table, this table, which is going to be a table that will be filled with women in literally just a few days as I'm recording this. But it changes people, right? I've seen in the very first season conversations, women walk into this room carrying stress from the week or the previous year, carrying grief, carrying uncertainty of their season of life. And I watch them sit around this room. I watch them feel open enough to share. I watch them feel open enough to let some things go. And I'll watch them look across from each other and beside each other and say, I've been through that, or I'm going through that right now. And I watched every single one of those women leave this room lighter. And it's not because like the problems disappeared, right? But it's what happened in this room that reminded them that they were no longer carrying those things by themselves. It reminded them whose they are. Because when I tell you God moves in this room every single time that we feel it, I mean that. That's what community does, right? It reminds us of our humanity. It reminds us that we need more than the scrolling. We need more than access to information. We need that human connection because we are connected, all of us, right? Like we are not allowed in this world to not need each other. It's funny enough, yesterday I listened to my pastor teach a sermon about what God teaches us. He was teaching about needs, right? And how we all have them, and that neediness and having needs are not the same. Having needs is something that God, like, divinely made sure that we would have because we are human. He created us this way to have needs. He created us in the way that we are connected and that we take care of each other. So no one should be doing life alone because God did not intend for us to be that way. And so, what if the next step for you was not getting another book, listening to another podcast? I'm actually very grateful that you're listening to this one because it gives you a different perspective, right? And I want to challenge you and myself too, because I'm guilty of it too. I literally have just recently brought a book and I was like, man, do I need to start this or do I need to get myself in a community that understands what I'm going through and work through that at the same time, right? But not alone, not in a silo. But before you move on to the next thing, maybe you've got like a list of books in your cart or you have a list of podcasts that you listen to every week. Maybe before you hit play on that next podcast or open that next book or click add to cart and purchase on that next thing, before you Google the next strategy or coach, I want you to pause and ask yourself, is what I'm needing right now more information or do I need to be surrounded by people? Do I need to be connected? Do I need support, right? Because getting more information and connection and support are two totally different things. So before we close out this season together, I'm going to invite you to take a breath at the end of season 5 with me. So you're going to inhale, hold it for a few seconds, exhale. Let that exhale be longer than your inhale. And we're going to do it one more time. Exhale. And I want you to this week ask yourself a question. Where am I trying to consume my way, as in consume more information, consume the next strategy? Where am I trying to consume my way into something that is actually needing connection with other people? I want you to just sit with that. Again, never any judgment, never any shame, just curiosity and self awareness. Because sometimes like what we're searching for is not the answer. We can get the answer all day and think we have the answer, but then what do we do with that after we have it? Do we make sure that we are supported by people who understand, who can support us maybe when things don't go exactly as we thought that they would? Do we need a community? Do we need a table? Do we need a room like this one, like season conversations? So I want to recap again what we've learned in season 5 of the podcast. Gosh, I feel like this one has gone pretty fast, y'all, but I am again so grateful to be able to lead you through practical ways in your life that you can truly thrive. And so let's talk about what we learned. Slowing down is not falling behind. Remember that thriving is a practice. It's not something that you just get and you're like, yep, I've made it. I'm thriving. It's something that you continuously have to put into practice. And your self trust that continues to get built over time. And sometimes you lose it and have to build it back up again. Y'all, your capacity matters. Your capacity matters. It matters in the fact of you living your life sustainably and not for the sake of consistency. And remember, pivoting is leadership. If you are feeling the urge to pivot in any area of your life, you are taking leadership, ownership of your life, of your family's life, of the trajectory of your journey. And lastly, healing happens in community. Like you were never meant to do life alone. God, like I said, never meant for us to do this alone. Yes, we have more information, but that doesn't mean we have to do with it by ourselves. We don't have to take the action by ourselves, at least not all the time, right? And so, with that, I want to personally invite you into this room. I want to invite you to the next edition of Season Conversations. I talked about pivoting, right? And Season Conversations, y'all, it has taught me a lot about not just entrepreneurship, but also about my capacity. It's taught me a lot about what I'm building and how it doesn't have to be at the pace or the speed as everyone else. And because I know that there's someone listening to this podcast right now that is saying, I need to get myself in the room. I've been listening all season. I've been nodding along. I've been saving episodes, going back and repeating. And if you're that person and you've been like telling yourself, like, one day I will find the community, then maybe this is it. We are currently based here in Atlanta, Georgia. And I honestly would love to see you at this table. So, this is your invitation to get in the room, sit at the table, be surrounded by other women who know that life is not meant to be done alone, right? So, the link to get on the wait list for the next room that we will build in Creator's Kitchen is in the show notes. Y'all, thank you. This is me. So much gratitude for you being here for season 5. Thank you for every single download. Thank you for every message telling me when a specific episode or message that I shared with you that it resonated. Thank you for every single review, every share out. And thank you for maybe allowing me to walk with you in this season. And thank you for walking with me in this season of my life. And I want you to remember like the goal is never just to listen, right? You can listen to the podcast, you can read the book, do all the things, but the goal is to actually live it, to take the action, to get yourself in the room. And so I will see you hopefully in the room. Bye, y'all.